Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into what is literally the most shocking, heartbreaking, and honestly, cinematic narrative in the entire history of international sports. I want you to picture the scene. It's the grandest stage imaginable. The expectations of an entire nation are at an absolute fever pitch, and the script seems completely pre-written. But sports have a funny way of tearing up the script. We're looking at the 1950 FIFA World Cup, a tournament that defied every convention, shattered dreams, and created a legend so heavy it haunted a nation for generations.
When the referee blew that final whistle on July 16, 1950, something unnatural happened. Witnesses described an atmosphere unlike anything they had ever experienced. No cheers, no celebrations, no noise, just shock. Imagine the loudest, most chaotic roar you have ever heard in your life, instantly vacuumed out of existence. It was a suffocating, terrifying silence.
And what makes that silence so incredibly chilling is the sheer unimaginable scale of it all. 200,000. We are talking about almost 200,000 human beings packed into a concrete bowl, standing totally, completely frozen in disbelief. Some wept openly, others just sat entirely motionless. I mean, how does a crowd of that unimaginably massive scale go completely dead silent all at once?
So let's figure out exactly how we got to that moment of absolute despair. To really grasp the weight of that deafening silence, we have to rewind. The stakes of this specific tournament were almost existential. This wasn't just a game, it was a global rebirth. The last time the world gathered for a World Cup was 1938. Then, the devastation of World War II tore the globe apart. The tournaments planned for 1942 and 1946 completely canceled. International sport obviously had to take a back seat to sheer human survival. So when FIFA announced the World Cup would finally return in 1950, it carried enormous symbolic weight. Football was stepping up to bring a fractured world back together. And Brazil was chosen as the host.
Now, Brazil didn't just embrace this responsibility. They saw it as their grand arrival on the global stage, and they built a colossal temple to prove it. The Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro wasn't just another sports venue. At the time, it was the absolute largest football stadium on the planet. Its scale was just astonishing. For Brazilians, this stadium symbolized their future. Modern, confident, powerful. They weren't just hosting a tournament, you see. They were preparing the ultimate stage for their own inevitable coronation.
Okay, here's where things get kinda wild. There's a bizarre twist in the format of this tournament that still confuses casual fans today, but it perfectly set the stage for epic drama. Normally, every World Cup has a final, right? You have a knockout bracket, two teams reach the end, one wins, one loses. Boom, simple. But the 1950 World Cup actually had no traditional final. Instead, FIFA used this really unique format. After the initial rounds, the final four teams, Brazil, Uruguay, Spain, and Sweden, were placed into a final group stage. They played a round robin, and the champion would just be the team with the most points at the end. There was no winner-takes-all showdown planned in advance. It was literally just math.
As that final group stage kicked off, Brazil didn't just look like they were going to win on points. They looked terrifying, an absolute powerhouse on the pitch. They totally dismantled their opposition. I mean, they crushed Sweden 7-1. Then they annihilated Spain 6-1. The goals were just flowing, and they were playing this spectacular, thrilling, attacking football that had the entire country erupting in massive celebrations. With every single goal, the entire nation became more and more convinced that destiny was unfolding right before their eyes.
But this is exactly where the danger starts to creep in. The arrogance. The local media took that incredible momentum and just ran with it, crossing a massive psychological line. Newspapers literally treated Brazil's triumph as a foregone conclusion. Some publications actually printed photos of the team with headlines effectively declaring them world champions days before the final match was even played. Talk about tempting fate, right?
And fate had arranged an incredibly dramatic climax. Because of how the points shook out in that final group stage, the math accidentally created a de facto final anyway. In the very last match of the tournament, Brazil faced Uruguay, and here is the kicker. Brazil needed only a single point, just a draw to secure the World Cup. Uruguay, on the other hand, needed a flat-out victory against seemingly impossible odds, playing in front of a massive hostile crowd. The stage was perfectly set for a Brazilian party.
Now, history often remembers the defeated while forgetting the sheer will of the victors. So let's look at the other side of the pitch and meet the men who are about to shock the entire world. Uruguay were not just victims turning up for a slaughter. No way. They were a small but incredibly determined nation that had actually won the very first World Cup back in 1930. They possessed a deep sporting pride, anchored by their captain, Obdulio Varela. Before the match, he told his team, and this gives me chills, ignore the crowd, ignore the pressure, ignore the predictions, focus only on the match. I mean, what immense leadership. While Brazil was swimming in this dangerous overconfidence, Varela grounded his team, turning all that impossible pressure into pure focused defiance.
Okay, it's July 16th, 1950. We are back inside the Maracanã. The tension is at an absolute boiling point. Flags are waving, songs are echoing, the coronation is fully ready to begin. The first half is a tight, nervous affair, ending 0-0. But then, early in the second half, the dam breaks. Friaça scores for Brazil. The massive concrete bowl of the Maracanã absolutely explodes with pure, unadulterated joy. It's 1-0. To the 200,000 people in the stands, this is it. The World Cup is officially won.
But Uruguay completely refuses to surrender. In the 66th minute of the match, the script begins to tear. Juan Alberto Schiaffino finds the back of the net for Uruguay. He equalizes. Suddenly, it's 1-1. And that roaring crowd, it suddenly drops an octave. The absolute certainty of the fans is instantly replaced by this creeping, deeply uncomfortable concern. But still, remember the math. At 1-1, Brazil only needs a draw. The trophy is actually still theirs.
And then, the 79th minute, the fatal blow. Elcias Quiglia races down the right flank for Uruguay. He advances toward the goal. The Brazilian goalkeeper, Moacir Barbosa, edges out, anticipating a cross to the center. But Quiglia doesn't cross. He tricks Barbosa. He shoots directly at the near post. The ball hits the back of the net. 2-1, Uruguay. The impossible has happened. Brazil is losing. The dream is collapsing in real time, and the world's largest stadium is plunged into that terrifying, breathless silence.
And you know, that silence echoed far beyond the final whistle. It lasted for decades. The aftermath of this match is one of the most solemn realities in the history of the sport. The defeat instantly earned a name that would haunt Brazilian football forever, the Maracanazo, which translates to the blow at the Maracanã. This wasn't processed as a sporting loss. It was felt as a literal national tragedy, a lingering scar. Long after the stadium emptied, Brazilians remembered exactly where they were when the dream died, treating it with the gravity of a historical disaster.
The human cost of such staggering expectations was absolutely devastating. Moacir Barbosa, the Brazilian goalkeeper who was outsmarted on that final goal, carried the unfair blame for the rest of his life. He became this incredibly tragic figure, scapegoated by a nation looking for a reason why their guaranteed destiny was stolen from them. The shattered dreams of an entire country were unfairly placed squarely on his shoulders for decades.
Even today, the legacy of that afternoon remains deeply, deeply embedded in the culture. For over 60 years, the Maracanazo was the undisputed greatest heartbreak. It wasn't until 2014, when Brazil hosted the World Cup again and suffered that catastrophic 7-1 defeat to Germany, known as the Maracanazo, that the nation even had another wound to compare it to. To this day, Brazilians furiously debate which of these two colossal, devastating losses actually hurts more.
Which brings us to a final, vital thought. Is the absolute unpredictability of the game what makes the World Cup so special? The 1950 tournament proves that no victory is ever truly guaranteed. No dream is safe from reality. It's a striking reminder of exactly why we watch, why we care so deeply, and why the drama of sports is unmatched by anything else in the world. Thank you for joining me on this explainer, and I hope it leaves you reflecting on the beautiful, brutal uncertainty of the games we love.